So welcome, chill out, and here's Diane.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? Good. Excellent. All right. Let me see. Before I get started, I'd like to kind of take a pulse of the crowd who we got here. So raise your hand if this is your first IWS. Anybody? Oh, wow. A lot of people. Awesome. That's really exciting. Okay, cool. So I hope you're having a good time. I hope this is a good part of your day. Thank you for coming. Raise your hand if this is your second IWS. Okay, hey, I'm actually right there with you guys. This is actually only my second IWS. So the reason I mention that is because I want to assure you that I am very nervous up here. And so I am hoping that I can actually employ and demonstrate many of the skills that I'm going to go over today to talk about how to perform under pressure and overcome obstacles and things. Let me see, so obviously I titled the talk Social Engineering for Introverts. I don't want to put any introverts on the spot, so raise your hand. Do we have any extroverts in the room?
Woo!
Excellent! Very good in front. Who are the ambiverts? Who are the ambiverts? Kind of halfway in between introvert and extrovert. I'm right there with you. Okay, cool. So I do want to assure you that there's something here for everybody. Who's in here because you are currently a social engineer or a pen tester doing social engineering? Anybody? Got a copy?
Sure.
All right, sure. Excellent. Who are the aspiring social engineers? Okay, so I'm guessing everybody else in the room, you just want to know what the social engineers do so that you can learn how to defend against it. Is that accurate? Okay, all right, fair. Well, let me see. So I am going to, I guess I will introduce myself here real quick. So who am I? This is me after a long drill weekend. I do want to mention that I am not currently here representing any company. I am a member of the Army National Guard. I am not here in uniform today. I also work for, I'm not representing them today either. I'm just here as me. My current position, I actually just took a full-time position working for the Army National Guard, so I'm actually the State Resilience Coordinator. Many people are surprised to learn that the Army has a resilience program, let alone that there's a coordinator position for it. I learned when I was trying to practice for this talk that I can talk a lot about that program and how awesome it is, but for the purposes of this talk, a lot of what I get to do in that role is help soldiers overcome difficult situations and perform under pressure. And a lot of those skills are really useful for social engineering. So I'll lean into that just a little bit. I started as a network system server kind of account administrator. I kind of did all the things, the technical side. I spent a little bit less than a year on the pen testing team, which is where I learned that apparently not everybody loves social engineering because it's really intimidating to talk to people. And I had just taken a position as a client success manager, more talking to people kind of stuff. Before doing the full-time Army thing. And the only other experience that I'm going to lean on for the purposes of this talk is that a long time ago in a former life, like 2015-ish, I actually did full-time for 2 years door-to-door sales, as part of a multi-level marketing firm, one of those like leadership cult type things. And it turns out that, yeah, they've got sales down to a science, and there really are like formulas you can follow for how to have a conversation and persuade people. So I will lean into that as well for part of this talk. So to get into social engineering for introverts, there's two questions. First, what is social engineering? And second, why is it scary? So this is the definition for social engineering that I admit I pulled it off of Google, okay? So I just Googled what defines social engineering, and I thought this was perfect, honestly. So in the context of information security, according to Oxford/Google, social engineering is the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or personal information that may be used for fraudulent purposes. I mean, how evil does this sound, right? Like, we're definitely the cool hacker people, right, that do the social engineering. We're manipulating all these people. So with this definition, I can't possibly imagine how social engineering can be scary or intimidating, right? I'm clearly being facetious. So I can actually come up with at least 3 reasons why social engineering is scary. Obviously, first, for the introverts in the room, you're talking to people. That's really scary. Like your own face in front of other people. And actually, I should clarify, because social engineering is a very broad umbrella. And there are many other forms of social engineering, including like all of your ishing attacks, your phishing, your smishing, I guess phishing does require using your voice. But then there's social media social engineering attacks. There's all kinds of different social engineering, and I will come back around to that when we wrap up at the end. But if you were hoping that social engineering for introverts was all of those other types of social engineering that involve hiding behind a keyboard, sorry to disappoint, I am actually going to talk about how to get better at the kind of social engineering that involves talking to other people, which is really scary. People are terrifying, people suck. We all know that, right? Second reason is that all that language about deceiving and manipulating people. That's really scary because, it's like, again, like, you're the bad guy. You're what if you get caught? Like, here you are trying to trick somebody in real life. This isn't a movie. You might be acting, but they aren't. And what happens if you get caught? Best case scenario, this is like major public humiliation in front of other people. I can't imagine how that could possibly be terrifying, right? And then the third reason is that even inside of your deception, in addition to trying to prove to people that you are something that you're not trying to persuade them to do something for you, to divulge that information, to give you something that you need that they don't necessarily want to give you. So these are the top reasons off the top of my head why I can think that social engineering is really scary. Did I leave anything out? Any call outs of other reasons why social engineering is scary? Did I cover it?
Legal gray area.
Legal gray, yes. There's definitely, what are the consequences? And what if I fail? Not only is it public shame if this person catches me trying to trick them, but what if my boss fires me because I'm really bad at social engineering, right? So for the rest of this talk, the way I'm structuring this is first I want to tackle 1 and 2, at least number 2. I want to throw this whole deception thing out the window. I want to kind of lean into some of these psychological tricks, or psychological techniques, rather, I should say, that are taught in the Army Resilience Program, that are not unique to the Army Resilience Program. Some psychological strategies that allow you to go into your social engineering engagement a lot more confident, a lot more empowered, and setting you up for success just with your right mindset going into the engagement. Because focusing on the deception and manipulation is almost certainly going to set you up for failure unless you're actually a psychopath, in which case, you go. Second half of the talk, I am going to focus on the kind of more the sales side of things, how to actually persuade people. What are those things that you actually say? You walk into your engagement and you feel super confident, but then you have to have words come out of your face that actually convince people to do something for you. So how do you do that? So starting with the mental side. This is a book, I have no sponsorship or anything related to this author or this publishing company, but I really personally like this book. This actually is outside of the Army Resilience Program. I first read this actually doing door-to-door sales. But I really liked this. It is a very approachable book talking about some of the basics of what is essentially cognitive behavioral psychology. In here they call it acceptance and commitment therapy or acceptance and commitment training. But it's essentially the same concept as cognitive behavioral, which is the same concept as what the Army uses for our resilience program. And there's a lot of pieces I want to take out of this, but the main takeaway that I want to talk about here are 2 different types of confidence. There are the feelings of confidence, which is what you have after you have successfully done something many times before, which is really hard to have if you have never done something before. But even if you don't have the feelings of confidence, you can perform the actions of confidence. So for example, I'm standing up here right now. I told you at the beginning, this is like only my second IWS and I'm super nervous up here, but I can focus on the actions of confidence, which are trying to focus on my voice, trying not to let myself be too high-pitched or talking too quickly, I'm concentrating really hard, I'm not pacing too much up here. I am carrying myself well, and I know that those are the right things to do. And so if I focus on performing those actions, hopefully I'm able to deliver a competent talk for you guys, for you to get stuff out of it. And so I don't have to feel confident. The reason I really like this is because I think it's a really great alternative to the fake it till you make it mantra. Now, if you have lived by fake it till you make it your whole life and that works for you, fantastic. Like, one of the big things that I'm going to reiterate here a few times is that I'm not going to tell anybody what's right or wrong. As far as I'm concerned, there's no right or wrong. What matters is what's helpful or not helpful. For me, I'm a really genuine person. I really don't like the idea of ever being fake. And so the whole fake it till you make it thing like never worked for me. But the feelings of confidence versus the actions of confidence really does. So I hope that that's a good alternative. Again, trying to give you an effective tool to help you here. The other piece of the psychological piece here. This is one of many skills that we teach in the Army Resilience Program. And like I said, it's not unique to the Army Resilience Program. This is essentially the basis of most, what I'm calling cognitive behavioral psychology. And the concept is that your thoughts drive your consequences. Pick an activating event, any activating event, doesn't really matter. It could be anything. It could be big, it could be small, it could be positive, it could be negative. Some guy cuts you off in traffic, or your daughter sends you a text, or your mom sends you a text, you get a phone call in the middle of a talk, whatever the situation is. And it's the purpose of this skill is to recognize that it's not that guy cutting off in traffic that made you angry, it was your thought about it that made you angry, which I realize a lot of people get really angry when I tell them that. But to demonstrate this point, and the reason why this is important, the way I demonstrate this when I teach this on the Army side, is we can take a single activating event. So for the purposes of this class, let's imagine that as soon as we get out of this talk, we find out that we're actually currently in a very sudden, very vicious cyber attack coming out of Russia. Okay, so that's the activating event. Single activating event, there's a cyber attack coming out of Russia. Different thoughts that we can have about this. Some people in the room might be really scared, like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? This is bad. Like, what are the, there's danger around, and we're gonna have a response associated with fear. Other people might be like, yes, I've been preparing for this my whole life. I am one of the cyber defenders. I am going to save America. And you might be really excited, have a completely different reaction. Somebody else might be like, God damn it, this means I'm going to get called. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't. Somebody else might be like, man, this means that I'm going to get called into work. And that means I'm probably not going to get to go to that concert next weekend I want to go to, and you're just disappointed. So the point is that a single activating event, depending on what it means to you, controls your reaction. Now, why is this important? Because we're hackers. Everyone in this room is an existing or aspiring cybersecurity, probably hacker, right? I mean, that's the point. So the point is we can hack this. If you know what consequences you want to have, you can reverse engineer this. I'm not saying you're going to have control over all of your thoughts, but you can choose which thoughts to focus on to get you the consequences that you want. So for example, in a social engineering context, if you're constantly focusing on, oh my God, this is a big deal, this is really scary, I have to manipulate this person, I have to deceive them, I have to get to that server room, I have to get that corporate Wi-Fi password, and this person in front of me, she's making my life really difficult right now. You're gonna be focusing on all these things that make you angsty, anxious, upset, frustrated, and one, that makes you a lot less likable and people are not going to want to help you. Also makes you look super sus. And so at best, you are not doing a good penetration test because, a better social engineer would probably get further than how you're getting right now. And no wonder, that's the one side. But the other side is you're not ever going to want to do social engineering again because this is really stressful. So may I offer an alternative? Instead of focusing on all this deception and scary and things that make you afraid, change your thought to recognize, I propose this as an option, you're the one testing them. Remember that? You're the pen tester. If you're that social engineer, you're the one with the clipboard. And you know what happens? If they let you into that server room, you know what's going to happen? You're going to check a box on your clipboard. And if they don't let you into that server room, you know what's going to happen? You're going to check a different box on your clipboard. And you know what's going to happen either way? You're going to write a report, and you're going to get paid. If that thought helps you not focus on things that make you afraid, you're welcome to use it. Other things, other thoughts that you can focus on, whatever your cover story is. Let's say you're here from Cox because there was a power surge on the street last night, or a power outage, and we know that some of the businesses on this street have a particular version of a Dell server that has a malfunction where, in the case of a power surge, then the iDRAC doesn't come up correctly, and so now you need to go and get to the server room to check, make sure their iDRAC's okay. Whatever your story is, if you focus on those thoughts, then it doesn't matter necessarily if they're in your way or not. You're focusing on leaning into your story. Again, if that is not helpful for you, don't focus on it. But for me, a lot of times when I'm doing a social engineering engagement, I just really get into my character, and I'm thinking, well, listen, I don't care if I get to your server room or not, but I was sent here by my boss to check your thing because you had a power outage, so it's up to you if you want to take the risk of me not checking your iDRAC. But and that helps me have a more genuine, authentic reaction. Okay, so the emphasis that I want to have on that point, hack your brain. Focus on what's helpful. For time's sake, I'm just going to stick to those examples, but if you want to come up and talk to me afterward about other thoughts that might help you in your engagements, I'll be available. And specifically because this talk is about social engineering for introverts, I want to reassure the introverts in the room that you're already at the advantage. And the reason why, if we look here, this is Office Space, if anyone doesn't get the reference. When you're coming in, say, pretending to be the Cox guy, whoever it is that you're talking to is probably, and maybe this is discriminatory, maybe this is unfair, but they're probably going to assume that the Cox guy is some nerdy introvert. You already fit the bill. They're probably not going to look at you twice. They're not going to think too much about it. So, I've seen Eric, pretend to be somebody, and he's so extroverted that he'll talk himself into a hole. And that can be the problem. I've done that myself too. As an extrovert, we talk too much, or an ambivert, we talk too much and get ourselves into trouble. So the introverts actually have the advantage. So have a little bit of, that's your one boost of confidence there, that you're already starting from the advantage. The fewer words, the better. As you're already seeing, I'm giving too many words right now. But when we get into the sales side of things, one of the other principles is kiss it, keep it short and simple, or keep it simple, stupid. The fewer words, the better. I'm trying to give you that demonstration right now. I'm failing at that one. But introverts have the advantage for that reason. Okay, so now let's say you're walking in, you have mastered these skills of controlling your thoughts, hacking your brain, you're walking in with the actions of confidence, you're controlling your thoughts, you're focusing on the right things, and now, of course, the ideal social engineering engagement, you say exactly 0 words to anybody. You just walk in, you know what you're doing, you've got your clipboard, you go to the server room, you get what you need, you come back out, and nobody ever questions you, right? That's the ideal situation. But of course, if you're going into a situation, you have to be prepared that maybe the server room is locked, maybe you have to ask somebody for keys. Depends on how much recon you've done, I guess. So if you need to talk to people, we're going to get into some sales basics here. So this is a real picture of me from when I was doing door-to-door sales. I got my camel back there for a long day walking. That's where I first learned how to do professional clothes with sneakers. Best part of it is meeting all the local wildlife. And so I do want to tell you that, part of the reason I'm not in sales anymore is because it sucks. But when I was there, I was actually one of the better trainers of people. Getting enough sales to satisfy your quota really sucks. But more people closed their first sale with me than with most other people in the Midwest region because I kept, again, controlling the thoughts, focusing on the right things. And so the 3 things that I said, keep it simple. They're gonna buy whatever you're selling because there's a need for it. They have a need for it. And as a social engineer, you're going to create that need with your story. There was a power outage last night and I need to check your Dell server or whatever. So you're creating that need, so I'm not gonna focus on that here. They're gonna buy it today. They're going to have that impulse to take action right now because you build impulse, and so next we're gonna go over and talk about how to do that. And then they're gonna buy it from you because they like you. And I had actually had an instance where I impulsed somebody and they said, oh yeah, we're definitely gonna buy this product, but we're not gonna buy it from you. Because I accidentally insulted her, so that didn't go over very well. So after we talk about impulse actions, we're gonna talk about how to, first of all, don't accidentally call somebody old. That was bad. But how to actually make people like you. So talking about impulse factors. I do want to mention that if you study for the CompTIA Pen Test Plus exam, these are listed as social engineering, in the social engineering section as methods of influence. There is a lot of overlap. It's essentially the same thing as the impulse factors, but I actually like it better the way that I learned it in sales. So I learned it as the GIFs, J-I-F-S. First is the Jones effect. CompTIA calls it social proof. It's the same concept. It's the idea of keeping up with the Joneses. Nobody wants to be first, but nobody wants to be last. So if you throw into your story, for example, yeah, we had a power outage last night. I've been sent out by Cox. I got to go to all the businesses on this street. I've talked to everybody on this side of the street so far. We've already found 2 servers where their iDirect didn't come up correctly. Okay, regardless of whether that's true or not, you have just built some rapport and a little bit of impulse in that person. To be fair, not everybody is impulse the same, so it's good to try to use all the impulse factors because you never know, somebody might not care about anybody else's opinion. It's like, I don't care about Karen. I'm going to skip indifference for a second. Fear of loss, we're all familiar with FOMO, this idea that, buy one now, buy one, get one off. It's like, I'm out here today because we had this power outage last night. If you want me to come back later because your service went down, then we're going to have to charge you for it. This is your courtesy call because of the power outage last night. CompTIA calls this scarcity, same concept. Sense of urgency is one. A lot of people think that fear of loss and sense of urgency are the same thing. The way that I would describe it is that fear of loss is you should act quickly to take advantage of this opportunity. Sense of urgency is I'm going to act quickly to respect your time. So the phrase real quick, I've integrated this so deeply into my vernacular at this point. I've probably already said it without noticing at least once in this presentation. And the way that works is if I just say real quick, essentially your ears perk up for all about 5 seconds maybe. If I say anything interesting in that 5 seconds, I can buy more of your attention. But the one that I noticed that CompTIA completely misses is indifference. And in my opinion, this is the most powerful of the impulse factors. This is the idea of not being salesy. Nobody wants to be sold. The reason why we hate the stereotypical used car salesman is because he's so pushy, right? It's, what can I do to get you into this car today? And it's like, geez, dude, leave me alone. That's what you do. So indifference is extremely powerful. The idea of, I don't necessarily care. This is your decision. I'm just here to provide you the information. And ultimately, you get to make that decision. So this is where that ATC model, controlling your thoughts, really helps. Because if you're focusing on, hey, I've just been sent out here, as the Cox guy, if you're leaning into your story, I'm just out here for the Cox guy. It's up to you if you want to risk. Your system's not coming up tomorrow morning, and then you have to wait 4 hours and pay for us to come back out here. I'm here right now. A little bit of fear of loss, a little bit of indifference there. Ultimately, it makes them feel, if they let you into their server room, that it was their decision, not you pushing them. And it definitely builds that impulse and makes that connection a lot less stressful. The other way that you can focus on this again is, as a social engineer, your job is not to get into the server room. Your job is not to get that corporate Wi-Fi password. Your job is to test them. Your job is to give them the best possible social engineering test that they paid for. So ultimately, again, you're just going to check one box or the other box. And if you remain indifferent to whether or not you get to that server room, it's a lot easier. And this again goes back to how your thoughts control your physiological reactions. You will come off less pushy, your tone of voice will be more calm, you're not gonna get sweaty, you're not gonna talk fast, you're not gonna have that fever like the used car salesman, like I really need to get, are you sure you're not gonna let me into that server room? It definitely helps not only make you a lot less suspicious, it makes you more likable, which is what we're gonna talk about next. So, any questions on impulse factors yet? I know what to talk about. Okay. We'll have time for questions at the end. Real quick, I am going to go over 5 steps to a conversation, although for a social engineering engagement, you really only need the first 2. And the important piece of it is, don't forget step 1. I'm going to give you a demonstration. I'm going to give 2 really quick conversations, and my goal is to try to help you understand that there's a different feel between the 2 conversations. And some of you may pick up on it, other people it may not. But so if I say, hey, I'm here with Cox, we just had a power outage last night, I'm gonna need you to let me into the server room. No. All business, very strict. Or I say, hey, how's it going? So listen, I'm here with Cox, we just had a power outage last night, I need to get into your server room. Austin, could you feel anything different between those 2 conversations?
Yes. One of them I'm a checkbox and another one I'm a person.
Yes, that's a great way to describe it. So yeah, in the first conversation, it was all business. I was just treating him as an obstacle in my way to get to my objective. And in response, most likely, he's gonna treat me all business. No, it is my job to deny you access to the server room. On the other hand, if I stop for 2 seconds and just ask him, how's it going? I'm now seeing him as a person. And I'm humanizing myself as a fellow person. It's 3 words, I promise, even introverts can do that. And it's a rhetorical question. Like, you're not actually expecting much of a response most of the time, but just that much, pausing for 2 seconds, you could be the first person all day to ask that person how they're doing. And that can absolutely, it does. It starts that spark of connection between you 2. And when they have that little bit of connection, they want to help you. For completeness, I will mention steps 3, 4, and 5, again, for most social engineering engagements. Hopefully you don't even need to get into these. If the manager gets called out and is drilling you and is like, okay, now why again do you need to get access to the server room? You can end up giving a full presentation, full explanation, this is the deal, and the only thing I want to emphasize there is make sure that you ask all your questions up front. And then you give your side of the talking. The point of that is that if you break to ask them a question, you might not get to talk again. So this is one of the tricks in sales where, and again, if you've done all your recon, you know all the answers to these questions already, but I say, hey, well, okay, listen, maybe I don't need access to your server, but listen, do you guys have a server, on site? You do? Okay, all right, your clipboard, all business-like, right? Well, do you know if it's a Dell or an HP? Okay, it's a Dell. Okay, do you happen to know what model it is? No, Tito handles that. Okay, well, is Tito here today? No, he's on vacation this week, which of course you know because you've done your recon. And you're like, all right, well, and then you give your presentation and explain why you need access to the server. Always, anytime that you get diverted from the short story or after a presentation or after an objection, anything like that, always come back to the closing statement, which is where you ask for what you want. That is actually really important. It's surprisingly common for people to do this whole presentation and they've completely convinced them and they're impulsed and they're ready to do whatever you ask and their body language is just telling you what to do. And if you never actually ask them for what you want, it can be really awkward and ultimately you end up not getting what you want. And then step 5 is your upsell. So if you get everything you want, you can try to go for more. There's always more, right? The selfie in the owner's chair or something if you've already got domain admin credentials. I want to play this clip. I hope, everyone can be quiet. I don't know if I can get the sound here, but this is a great demonstration of the steps to the conversation. I don't think we can hear. Does anybody recognize this movie? Yes, okay, so this is the opening scene of Hackers. I'm really sorry we can't hear this. But what is happening right now is that our protagonist, through a cool, is doing a social engineering phishing call, and he's choosing to baffle poor Norm with BS rather than a real story, and that works for him, and that's great. But after getting to this point, Norm's at the point like where I don't know what to do. You know, and he's got his kind of moments where he's you know, trying to laugh, trying to have those human moments with the guy. And ultimately he says, listen, can you just read me the numbers on the modem? And that's his closing statement, and ultimately he gets what he wants. So if you haven't seen Hackers, you should watch it, and that's the scene I'm talking about. Okay, so now, okay, great. You know how to structure your conversation. You know how to at least start that spark, how to get people to start to see you as human. How do you get the, has anybody, you know the trope, right? Where, you know, you go up to a person and they've known you for all of like 2 minutes, but they just trust you, right? Like something about you, they are all of a sudden willing to break all kinds of laws to go around policy to do a special exception just for you, and they've known you for like less than 5 minutes. How does that magical moment happen? I can't promise it every time, but this is the formula, if there is one. Validate their excitement about something they're interested in. All right, the 5 most common categories of things that they're interested in are family, occupation, recreation, dogs, and sports. And let me demonstrate how this works. So you come up to a person and you're about to give your intro and your short story, and you say, hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
And you notice that Austin's drinking coffee. You are listening. Do you care? Okay. You notice that Austin is drinking coffee out of an OSU mug. Doesn't matter what side of the debate you're on there, but you just notice, hey, Cowboys fan? Go Pokes. All right, hey, listen, I'm from Cox. I'm here because you had a power outage last night. But all of a sudden, by just making that connection, those extra like 7 words or whatever I said, now we're on the same team. Almost literally, we're both Cowboy fans, okay? Or if they're an OU fan or a Thunder fan or, you know, whatever. So sports is a really good one. You do have to be a little bit careful with family. I will point out, like if they have a picture of their kid on the desk and he looks like he's about 7, you don't want to be like, wow, that's a cute kid, I like your kid. That can be really creepy.
Easier for you than me.
Fair enough. Definitely, you know, try to avoid the creep. It's much easier said than done. I've definitely been very creepy. It doesn't usually go over well, but if you can avoid it, now I'll tell you what. If they have a picture of their dog, though, that is a gold mine. I say this as a dog owner with a picture of a dog on my desk. I swear, if you come up to me and let me gush to you about my dog for 5 minutes, I will do anything for you. I love my dog. So yeah, the point being, and again, you don't have to say anything. All you gotta do is, oh, is that your dog? You know, and they're like, oh yeah, that's my little Lucy. She's really great. And you ask like some deeper question, like, oh, what breed is she? And then that starts. And you've got 10 minutes of them telling you and showing you all these pictures of their dog. And now all of a sudden, you know, they will do anything for you because you have a connection. All you have to do is validate them. All you have to do is validate, and you say, you just smile and nod. And listen to them. Almost everybody else who they have ever tried to gush to their dog about is like, yeah, okay, listen, like I gotta go. Just listen to them, you know. And eventually, like obviously, eventually you have to get back to work. But you say, that is so awesome. Listen, your dog is fantastic. Listen, I'm actually here from Cox. You had a power outage last night. You know, I gotta get to your server room. But because you listened to them and you validated them, they will have that moment with you. They will have that connection. Like I said, I can't promise this is not guaranteed every time, but especially if you can get them to gush, this is great. What you can say for family is things like, oh, it's a good looking family there. And a lot of times they'll instantly go into, yeah, that's my oldest daughter. She's going off to college next year. I'm really excited about it. You know, and again, you know, recreation, if you see one of those like fish things on a plaque behind their desk, you know, whatever. You know, I don't know anything about fishing, but I can say, oh yeah, are you a fisherman? And they'll be like, yeah, and if they, you know, okay, they'll start talking, and they probably won't. They're probably like, because they know it's a weird thing, right? And they know that they don't want to talk about it. But you're like, oh, so did you catch that one? And they're like, no, that's from Walmart. But did you fish? I do fish. And I can quite honestly say I don't know anything about fishing, but it seems really cool. Tell me about it. And then now you've just given them the invitation. I have said, tell me about it. That's 4 words. Tell me about it. I don't know anything about it. Tell me about it. And you've given them permission to now gush to you about something that they're interested in. You validated them. You listened to them for 5 minutes, and then you go to your short story. And now they're going to try to do everything they can to get you into that server room, even if they have to go break into the manager's office themselves to get you the key. So this is a very powerful tool. Please don't use it for evil. The last part of the sales side of this that I want to cover is overcoming objections. So inevitably, you'll probably get some objections, even if it's something like, well, we didn't experience a power outage. And it's like, well, no, because it was at 2 in the morning last night, whatever. Or, well, we haven't had any problems. Or, oh, no, sorry, it's against policy. We're not allowed to let people into the server room. Whatever the objection is, there are lots of ways to overcome objections. And sometimes, like, obviously, if they're doing the job right, if they actually pass the pen test, you don't overcome the objections. But some very simple tricks that help to overcome objections are the 3 T's. That's the best part about it. That's exactly why I'm here. Oh, and yeah, that's actually exactly how I was able to help, so-and-so, Mr. Jones down the street. So to give you an example of how these work, I'll try to give some examples. They say something like, oh, no, we actually can't let you into the server because the manager isn't here. You say, oh, yeah, actually, that's the best part about it because, I actually have remote access as soon as I just, click a button. I just got to turn it on and I'll be back out of here. So I promise it'll take less than 5 minutes. Make sure you come back to that closing statement. So, yeah, do you have the key? Can you let me back there? And then maybe they have another objection after, maybe they don't. They're like, oh, okay, and they, let you in the server. If they say, well, no, actually, you're going to have to ask Tito. He's our IT guy. He's off this week. You say, actually, that's exactly why I'm here, because I understand if Tito were here, he'd take care of it. But because he isn't, I want to make sure that you guys are taken care of. So that's why Cox sent me out to just check up on you guys. I want to make sure, so can I get to that server room? Remember, you always come back to the closing statement. And last example, if they say, well, we didn't notice any problems. I haven't. It seems perfectly normal to me. You say, oh yeah, actually that's exactly what I've heard from a lot of people today, because actually your main system is still working just fine. It's just your backup system that may or may not have booted correctly, so that's what I'm here to check. We actually found, to use your Jones effect, a couple people down the street already where theirs had to be rebooted, so that's why I'm here to check. It's really quick. Yeah, so can you walk me back there? Come back to that closing statement. So that's how to overcome objections. So quick recap of what we talked about so far. So how to overcome this fear of social engineering, how to go into your social engineering engagement with the right mindset. Remember your actions of confidence and that your thoughts drive your consequences. So hack your brain, find those thoughts, and you can practice ahead of time, figure out what thoughts help you have the right reactions. And then speak to persuade. You've got your impulse factors, your steps to a conversation. Most importantly, just don't forget the introduction. Have that human connection, make them feel validated about something they're interested in, and remember your 3 T's to overcome objections. Now, to wrap this up, I want to talk about social engineering in the future. And here's where I'm going to kind of broaden our umbrella talking about social engineering again. I know I've had a very narrow focus on specifically that face-to-face, one-on-one type of social engineering engagements for most of this talk. But if we focus on, if we broaden our umbrella again to all kinds of social engineering, those ishing, vishing, smishing, phishing, all the ishing attacks. We've got our social media, social engineering engagements. We've got the type of social engineering where it's one person talking to a TV camera. In my opinion, this is now going beyond any level of expertise that I have. In my opinion, that is one of the biggest focuses that we need to have on security going forward. We've already seen, back in 2016, how social engineering can interfere with elections. Even in 2020, we have now this social engineering aspect where people are able to come in and undermine our confidence in our information sources. I don't know anymore, honestly, if there is a single information source that everybody in this room could agree is a valid, valuable, trusting source. That's a very effective social engineering, psychological operation campaign. So what I want to do to wrap up here is just pose a series of questions to you. Hopefully, you have gleaned something valuable, you've taken something away here about how to be a more effective social engineer yourself, and in addition to helping your clients or your company's clients be more effective in your penetration tests, helping one company be more resilient to those social engineering attacks. I want you to think outwardly a little bit and how you individually or how your company can try to help build that same resilience on a larger scale. What can we do going forward in the future or even the present of security, whether that's cybersecurity or broader security? Recognizing social engineering, if we are aware of it, how can we defend against it? Of course, we're here at the Information Warfare Summit. I think a lot of the future of warfare is going to be that misinformation warfare. So that is my ask of all of you, is to just, I'm planting that seed. If anybody currently in here works in the misinformation sphere, that's where I would really like to take my career going forward, and I'd love to talk to you. But for everybody else, I'm planting that seed of how social engineering and misinformation are going to be really central and critical to our security going forward. And with that, I will give you my contact information here. This is my email address, which I do still check. I also have a YouTube channel. It's like a really, really small YouTube channel. I have like 4 videos. It's been on the back burner this summer. But you can find me on YouTube and Facebook if you want to check it out. I got some cards. With that, the focus of that is like communication, effective communication, and I'm taking it in the direction of misinformation. So with that, I will take your questions. Any other questions? I think I'm a little ahead of time. All right.
12-minute Q&A.
12-minute Q&A. Well, we don't have to fill all that time, I promise. But I'll let you guys get a good bathroom break. If there are any other questions, I'll stand up here to be available after the talk. I hope you guys got something valuable out of this, and thank you very much for coming.